Biafra. The CEO of Apple said he left religion because of Biafra's agony. This is written by one Casey the Don, and he has this to share on this subject. Steve Jobs is the late American magnate and renowned founder of Apple's products like iPhone before his death, and it would seem surprising to see his name appear alongside Nigeria. But in 1968, during the first years of the Nigerian Civil War, Steve Jobs, whose father was a Syrian immigrant from Aleppo, saw pictures of malnourished children in Nigeria that would change his life forever. And his journey away from religion began after seeing pictures of two kids emblazoned on the cover of Life magazine, starving children of Biafra, and that is during the Civil War. Job was just 13-year-old as at that time and living with his adopted parents, accosted his Lutheran church pastor with the magazine and wanted to be sure if God actually knows everything and does everything in his acclaimed capacity as omniscience, omnipotent, to which the preacher replied in the affirmative that yes, God does. As a teenager, it would appear Jobs wasn't patient enough to understand why God would permit evil to happen to kids. And the preacher did not do enough to enlighten Steve Jobs about the inevitability of the occurrence of good and evil. Jobs walked out of the door in 1968 during the Nigerian Civil War and never looked back till his death in 2011. Even though they were not fervent about their faith, Jobs' parents wanted him to have a religious upbringing, so they took him to the Lutheran church most Sunday. That came to an end when he was 13 in July 1968. Life magazine published a shocking cover of a pair of starving children, like I said. So Job decided to confront his school teacher, the Sunday school teacher, and the answer they gave was that God knows everything. And afterwards, he announced that he wasn't going to be part of anything that has to do with church or God in any form. Job was an American inventor. He's a designer, entrepreneur. He's also the co-founder and chief executive of chairman of Apple Computer. If you use an iPhone, MacBook, and the rest of them, he is the person, iPod, iPhone, and the rest of all this iPad. He is the part and a co-founder of this. He was born in 1955 to two University of Wisconsin graduate students who gave him up for adoption. Jobs was smart but directionless, dropping out of college and experimenting with different pursuits before co-founding Apple with Steve Wozniak in 1976. Jobs left the company in 1985, launching Pixar Animation Studios, then returned to Apple more than a decade later. Jobs died in 2011 following a long battle with pancreatic cancer. Jobs was born to Johann Shebey, later Johann Simpson, and Abdul Fattah John Jandali, two University of Wisconsin graduate students. The couple gave up their unnamed son for adoption. I think they were in school then and they felt that they don't need any of that, or because the young man is from Iran, Middle East, and that might have been been an issue. Jobs' father Jandali was a Syrian, not Iran, Syrian political science professor. His mother Shebli worked as a speech therapist. Shortly after Jobs was placed for adoption, his biological parents married and had another child. So they later married and had another child called Mona Simpson. It was not until Job was 27 that he was able to uncover information about his biological parents, as back in those days, such information are always kept very secret. As an infant, Jobs was adopted by Clara and Paul Jobs and named Stephen Paul Jobs. Clara worked as an accountant and Paul was a Coast Guard veteran and mechanist. Job was born in February 24, 1955 in San Francisco, California. He lived with his adoptive parent in Mountain View, California, within the area that would later become known as Silicon Valley. That is the hub where a lot of science and tech occurs, are domiciled in the United States of America. As a boy, Jobs and his father worked on electronics in the family's garage. Paul showed his son how to take apart and reconstruct electronics, a hobby that instilled confidence and tenacity and mechanical electrical prowess in the young man. So afterwards, he enrolled in school and he did, what he had to do in school, and he later dropped. Somehow, when he was 21 years, he and Wozniak started Apple Computer in Jobs' family garage. They funded their entrepreneurial venture by Jobs selling his Volkswagen Boss and Wozniak selling his beloved scientific calculator. Jobs and Wozniak are credited with revolutionizing the computer industry with Apple by democratizing the technology and making machines smaller, cheaper, intuitive, and accessible to everyday consumer. And I have just given you guys the background of the young man and what he saw and why he left church, because he couldn't have an answer to the sufferings of people in the world. So that is what it is for now. As you can all see that the civil war is not a joke. War is never a joke, even though war is still on right now as we live in many of the Middle Eastern countries, and there are economic war and a lot of issues all over the place. Biafra had suffered so much in those days. Why? Because they wanted to break. What is the crime in breaking away from a country if it's not working? After all, the North and the South were amalgamation that is not supposed to be. And when the British people left, I think things should have things should have come back, to what is supposed to be by people deciding on their own future. Even till now, they refuse a referendum, and they refuse to throw and abrogate this jaundiced constitution. They refuse decentralization of power. Power is just thrown out there in the presidency, and they dictate and determine whatever it is. That is not to say that the state governors are not criminals too. So the problem is complex yet simple. What is the solution to this? Clarity, transparency. Let that be the rule of law. Transparency should be the religion. And of course, punitive measures for whoever that fails to obey the rule of law, anybody that is involved. Stronger punitive measures should be given out. Autocracy should be cancelled. At least we will have just 10% or 20% of maybe some people here and there trying to be corrupt, looking for ways to, but then we have 80% of the rule of law working. And with this, we'll be able to move forward. But because that is not so, people are clamoring, okay, you know what? Let us break so that we can deal with our own people. That is what it is for now. If you're not a member of this channel, simply tap on the subscription button and the red notification icon bell so you'll be notified whenever videos such as this are uploaded. Thanks for stopping by.